I was on a long work trip, driving through Pennsylvania at night. My fuel was low, and I hadn't seen a gas station for miles. Finally, through the rain, I saw a sign for one. The station was small, with 2 pumps and an old building behind them. I tried to use the pump, but it was dead. Both pumps were out of service. Annoyed, I noticed a faint light inside the building. Thinking someone might help, I headed toward it. As I opened the door, a wave of unease hit me. The shelves were empty, some knocked over, and it looked like no one had been there for years. The light came from a dim lamp in the back. I quickly stepped back outside, planning to leave. But when I turned, I saw someone by my car, drenched from the rain, peering through the windows. "What are you doing?" I shouted. The person didn't respond, just glanced behind me. I turned to see another man rushing out of the building. He sprinted right at me. I bolted to my car and sped away, but not before hearing a loud, scraping noise. My heart raced as I drove another 30 minutes before my car finally gave out. Thankfully, I had cell service and called for help. The police later told me that gas station hadn't been operational for over a decade. I still think about what could have happened if I hadn't gotten out of there in time. Story that too. About 5 years ago, I moved into an apartment building where I met Arthur, my new next-door neighbor. He seemed awkward but harmless at first. Our first interaction was strange. He tapped my shoulder from behind to introduce himself, catching me off guard. Over the next few weeks, though, things got weirder. Every time I left my apartment, Arthur seemed to be in the hallway, always asking me to come over to his place. I declined politely at first, but his persistence became unsettling. One night I went to take out the trash and was only gone for a couple of minutes. When I returned, I got a strange feeling that something was off. As I got ready for bed, I heard a noise coming from my broom closet. Curious, I opened the door, and there was Arthur standing inside, staring at me. My heart stopped. I screamed and ran to my bedroom, locking myself in the attached bathroom. Arthur chased after me, but couldn't get through the bathroom door. I quickly called the police, explaining what had happened. I stayed hidden until they arrived. When they searched the apartment, Arthur was gone. They found him later, and it turns out he had a history of breaking into people's homes. I'll never forget the sheer terror of finding him hiding in my own apartment. Story 3. One evening, my friend and I decided to walk to the local Burger King for some food. It was already getting dark, but we'd never had any issues in the neighborhood before. The restaurant was mostly empty, except for a couple of workers and a man sitting alone in the corner. After ordering, we sat down to eat. The man who'd been sitting far away suddenly returned and sat much closer to us, carrying a large bag. He pulled out a laptop and began fiddling with it. My friend nudged me and motioned for me to look over. The man had angled his screen so we could see what he was watching. It wasn't normal content. It was something disturbing, showing women in compromising situations. He turned up the volume, and the eerie sounds filled the quiet restaurant. My friend and I exchanged nervous glances and quickly gathered our things to leave. As we rushed out, I noticed the man heading toward a black van parked just outside. We darted into a nearby gas station and hid, watching the van sit in the parking lot for what felt like forever. Eventually, it drove off, but the experience left us both shaken. We realized how close we had come to something far more sinister. Story former 4. It was just another lunch break, and I decided to grab a sandwich from Subway. The line was long, but I was in no rush. While I waited, my phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. I ignored it, but moments later a text popped up. "I'm in line behind you." Confused, I turned around, scanning the people behind me. No one seemed familiar. The woman standing directly behind me wasn't on her phone, and everyone else looked like total strangers. My heart raced. I texted back, asking who it was, but I got no reply. I tried to shake it off, thinking maybe it was just a prank. After grabbing my sandwich, I left the restaurant, looking over my shoulder as I walked back to work. I didn't see anyone following me, but I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling. The rest of the day passed without incident, but the whole experience stuck with me. I never figured out who sent that text, and I still wonder if someone was watching me that day. It was unsettling to think that someone could be that close and know exactly where I was, without me ever noticing. Story de la Confer 5. A friend of mine, Tara, had been dating a guy she met through mutual friends. At first, things seemed normal, but after a few months, his behavior became obsessive. He would constantly check her phone, follow her everywhere, and demand to know her whereabouts at all times. Things got worse when she tried to break up with him. He would show up unannounced, waiting outside her apartment or her workplace. One night, after she didn't respond to his texts for a while, he burst through her front door, furious. Tara was terrified. He started making threats, telling her she wasn't safe without him. Even after she called the police and filed a restraining order, he continued to stalk her. He drove by her house daily and left creepy messages on her voicemail. Tara was on edge all the time, afraid to go out alone or even answer the door. Eventually, her stalker moved back to his home state, and Tara had a brief period of peace. But she always feared he'd return, and one day, he did. He checked into the hotel where she was working, staying just long enough to let her know he hadn't forgotten about her. The terror was constant, and even now, Tara worries that one day he'll follow through on his threats.